Hello everyone, Saf Tech Reviews back here with another video. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be putting three heavyweights head to head, the Valve Steam Deck, the ASUS ROG Ally, and the Lenovo Legion Go. Let's dive right in. I thought of starting this review by first considering the ergonomics of each console. First starting off here with the ROG Ally, which weighs in at 614.3 grams. I'm weighing each one of those consoles with no SD card, just to know exactly how much they weigh. Also to consider the factor when you're transporting the console with the charger, how much that would weigh. So the Steam Deck here comes in at 667.7, so it is about 50 grams more than the ROG Ally. And finally here I'm going to be weighing the Lenovo Legion Go, which comes in at a whopping 853 grams almost. It kept sliding off here, but that's the weight. Another thing I wanted to consider is when you're gaming on the Legion Go, just with the joysticks, how much do those weigh? So over here I'm weighing the Lenovo Legion Go joysticks on their own and seeing how much each one weighs. Interestingly, one is quite much heavier than the other one. So starting off here with the console on its own, that weighs 640 grams. So surprisingly, the ROG Ally as a whole is lighter than just the tablet section of the Legion Go. So the right controller here weighs 114.9 grams. Moving on to weigh the left controller here, it weighs 98.6 grams. So in total, both controllers weigh about 213.5 grams, which makes it quite a light gaming experience once you disconnect them from the tablet and you game with the tablet on a table or something like that. Moving on to the charging brick, so I lost the footage for the Steam Deck's charger, but I did weigh it at 147.4 grams. Over here I just weighed the ROG Ally's charger, which was 209.6 grams. And then finally I will be weighing the Lenovo Legion Go's charger, which will come in at 174.4 grams. Now with this information we know how much each console weighs. So as a total and complete package, the Steam Deck comes in lightest at 815.1 grams, the ROG Ally comes in at 823.9 grams, and the Lenovo Legion comes in at a whopping 1027.8 grams. The main reason probably being that it has a larger screen and more components, but the other ones are definitely more portable, and the ROG Ally is the lightest console to game with in hand. So starting off here with the ROG Ally, I want to give my thoughts about using this console. So it sits in your hand very easily, it's very light, it's easy to control the cursor since it just automatically gets controlled with that right analog stick. Also the button placement seems very intuitive on this console. It reminds me a lot of an Xbox controller, really. Another thing to note is your top buttons on this console really are the start and select buttons, and then the bottom ones are the ASUS center related buttons, so for things like changing the settings, and I really like that. On the back you just have two buttons, so again it's a very simple, very clean design and very intuitive and easy to use. Now let's move on to the next console we have here, which is the Steam Deck. Again, I really like the button placement on the Steam Deck. In addition to the analogs, you have the trackpads at the bottom, and you could really click and move the trackpad using those left and right. On the back you have additional buttons there compared to ROG Ally, so you have a little more customization there when it comes to having more buttons to press. And then it's a bit heavier in the hand, the analog sticks both being aligned at the top. I find it a little cumbersome, but this will vary from one person to another in terms of experience. Some people may prefer that. I actually prefer the analog placement on the ROG Ally. So just feeling the analogs between both, it seems that the Legion Go has a bit tighter analog sticks. The ROG Ally sticks are very light and they travel very easily, but it has a lot of distance to travel, whereas in the Legion Go they feel very limited. The dead zone on the Legion Go for those sticks feels super limited, but they have a little more resistance. The tightest analog feeling I've gotten is from the Steam Deck. So moving back to the Legion Go here, I really do not like the design of these controllers. They are very flat on the sides and they kind of dig into your hands when you're gaming. Not to mention, on the right controller you have additional buttons and they are so easy to click. They barely have any resistance, so when you're gaming your hand just keeps hitting those buttons constantly. So I find that really annoying. And the same comes to the back of the console. There just seems to be too many buttons going on, and at alt placements, if you see on the right they're vertical, on the left they're horizontal. I don't really understand what Lenovo was thinking there. The trackpad on the right though, I find that excellent. It really does feel like a trackpad that belongs on a laptop. Even the surface texture of it is very smooth, and I like that a lot about that. And there's also a scroll wheel on the back which allows you to scroll up and down, which is what I'm using here. Those I find very interesting, and they really are a very good design choice from Lenovo. I really hate those additional button placements. The Lenovo related center buttons are on top, but the start select are on the bottom left, which doesn't make much sense when you're gaming. You need to go all the way to the bottom left to find that start select, when, you know, it would make more sense for them to be the ones on the top, like the ones on the ROG Ally, for example. So I'm not too sure why the ergonomics on this console is like that, but I honestly found them to be quite frustrating to use. So once again, moving to the back here on the Lenovo Legion Go, I want to talk a little about how to remove the joysticks on this console. So there is a little button on the bottom which you press in to remove them. I am not a fan of the mechanism. It feels very flimsy. I really do not like how they come out. It doesn't feel as clicky as, you know, the Switch where they slide in and out. It's just like very short travel. You click that button and it already feels weird when I'm trying to click it in, and I've only had the console, you know, for a few days at this point. So it's something that I don't feel like it might stand the test of time personally. The controllers feel very light and have a cheap feel to them. So the console has a little attachment that comes with it that attaches to the right controller magnetically. That's very easy to put on. Once you flick the switch on the bottom to the on position, it changes this into a sort of desktop mode, and that right controller becomes like a mouse, so you could play your FPS games with it. So while this idea is super cool, I have actually found it very, very frustrating to use. So for example, on several games such as Aim Hero, for example, I could move the cursor and, you know, move the gun around, but then when it comes to shooting, the mouse button that's supposed to be mapped to shoot doesn't work. I had the same issue happen outside when I was trying to click just throughout the desktop and select my games. It wouldn't work. It's super glitchy and it's definitely not polished. I think they should really work on their software here and make sure that that maps correctly. I found myself going back to the screen and clicking so many times to try to reconfigure or try to get this to work properly. But so far this seems more of a gimmick to me rather than totally usable. I understand using the joysticks to play regular games just like the Nintendo Switch, but this whole, you know, mouse clicking feature, while it is cool, it does feel kind of odd because typically you use a mouse in your right hand and the keyboard in your left hand when you're playing WASD games. In this experience it's kind of odd because you have, you know, you move around with the analog on your left hand, but then you aim with your right hand, and then you need to map the buttons correctly on your left hand. There's too much customization you need to do to actually enjoy this feature, and for me it's not really helpful. But I do love the idea that the joysticks come off like the Switch, because it does make this console easier to use, especially if you're out on a flight or something like that and you want to put the tablet on the table and sit back and relax and game. So I like the concept, I just do not like the implementation. It is very poorly made in my opinion. I do like the scroll wheel a lot though, and I do think that other consoles should have that. So there is a custom key mapping down there, or console key mapping option, sorry, where you could change it to FPS and play around with it, but again, the software is so glitchy, and yeah, I do not necessarily like this feature. I think it's more of a gimmick. So I wanted to shift gears here and talk a little about the screens on these consoles, starting off with the ROG Ally, which has a 7-inch 120Hz screen that goes up to 500 nits. I found that when looking at the sides and top and bottom of the screen, it doesn't really lose much color. It's very sharp in real life. I apologize for my camera going out of focus here, but yeah, you could see that it mostly maintains the colors really well. Next up here, I'll be looking at the Legion Go, which is the biggest screen. It's 8.8 inches, goes up to 144 Hz, and 500 nits of brightness. I do think this is the nicest screen when you're sitting and gaming, just because you can see so much, but it does get washed out a good amount when you're looking from the sides. The one that gets most washed out is the one on the Steam Deck, that LCD panel. It gets really washed out from all the angles. It's a 720p screen that goes up to 400 nits. I really look forward to the OLED screen on the new Steam Deck, and I will be reviewing that in an upcoming video. So over here I'm just firing up Death Stranding on all three, because there is a black screen right when the game starts, and you could really see how much the colors wash out from the sides here. And on the ROG Ally it's very uniform. On the Steam Deck it almost looks white from the sides. It's just gets very washed out from the left and right. This is a very drastic angle on all three, but it gives a good idea. Now I would say the Lenovo Legion is somewhere in the middle. It doesn't get all that washed out, but it's kind of like a gradient. But this should give a good idea on the viewing angle from the sides on those consoles. Now speaking of displays, on the Lenovo Legion Go, for some odd reason, you can switch the display to 144 Hz, but to go back to 60 Hz it asks you to connect the power supply. Again, very strange software glitches on this console that just really ruined the experience in my opinion, but I thought I'd mention that. So moving on, I really wanted to compare the network download speed of each console. I made sure to disconnect all the consoles from the internet and only compare the one that I am testing. So the ROG Ally in this case was the only one connected, and it hit a peak download speed of about 280 megabytes per second. Up next, I decided to test the Steam Deck and see how quickly it would download Tomb Raider. The Steam Deck did not seem to download it as quickly as the other console. It seemed to have peaked at around 120 megabytes per second. So it took around double the time to download Tomb Raider on the Steam Deck. Finally, the Legion Go was the last one for me to test, and it was blazingly fast. It finished the download really quickly and it hit 334 megabytes per second. So good job Lenovo on the network card in this console. So next off, I wanted to compare the battery life of the Lenovo Legion Go to the Steam Deck on ROG Ally in the same test I've done in a previous video, which I'll include in the link below. Starting off here, we're doing the 10 watt test on the Lenovo Legion Go, running Death Stranding at 720p and 60 Hz. So as you can see, the Lenovo Legion Go performed the worst in the 10 watt test. Next up is the 15 watt test. Keep an eye on the top left. I'm going to be changing the results to the 15 watt test. To be honest, this next result surprised me. As you can see, the Legion Go is set to the 15 watt mark, and for some odd reason it lasted 2 hours and 19 minutes, completely beating the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck by 1 hour. I repeated this test. I do not know why the Legion Go lasts longer in 15 watts versus 10 watts. Finally, here I'm testing it in its maximum wattage mode for 30 watts, and the results were shocking. I froze the frame here just to take note of this. When I tested the ROG Ally in the other video and its maximum wattage was 25 when it's unplugged, it lasted only 37 minutes, whereas the Legion Go lasted a whopping 1 hour and 21 minutes. I'm not too sure what Lenovo is doing here. The console seems to be running way longer than the others when it comes to the high wattage modes. There has to be some magic going on in the background here. It's interesting. So next up here is another test to check how long the Lenovo Legion Go takes to charge up to 100%. So the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck had some interesting results. Last time the ROG Ally took around half the time to charge up to 100% compared to the Steam Deck, whereas the Lenovo Legion Go took about 1 hour and 58 minutes for a full charge. But this isn't without its downsides. The Lenovo Legion Go has a lot of issues of which I wanted to show, which is not charging while gaming, for example, or charging very slowly. So let me show you an example of that. For example, you can see when I'm running the game here at 144 Hz in performance mode, even though it's been charging for about 30 minutes, the percentage barely goes up. Sometimes it doesn't go up at all, and sometimes the battery actually drains while gaming. Now let's contrast this to the experience on the ROG Ally when I'm playing the same game in performance mode at 120 Hz. Now on the ROG Ally, for the same amount of time, the console charges about 20%. So this is a big issue when it comes to the Legion Go. I even tried to use a 100 watt charger compared to the 65 watt one that comes in the box, and it actually doesn't change anything. It won't charge at all when gaming in that performance mode. Sometimes it won't charge at all even in the 15 watt mode. So there's something odd happening on the Lenovo Legion. So next up I want to talk about performance. I started by benchmarking Tomb Raider on all three consoles, first with the ROG Ally. I kept them all at 15 watts and 720p just to keep this as a fair comparison with the Steam Deck, even though I know the ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion are capable of much more performance, which I will touch on in a different comparison. But as you can see, the ROG Ally did really well here in this test, hitting a pretty high max FPS of 110 and an average FPS of 87. So it did really well in this test, and moving from here I will be comparing the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck has gotten some decent results here, hitting a minimum of 49 FPS and a maximum FPS of 60 FPS. So decent results here from the Steam Deck at 15 watts. It seems to be pretty optimized, but the performance from the ROG Ally at 15 watts is much more superior compared to the Steam Deck. So last but not least is the Lenovo Legion Go. And I want to point out I've tried everything to try to get the resolution to work properly on the Legion Go, even though it is set to 720p and I've tried to play around with the aspect ratio. It still showed some very strange stretching in Tomb Raider. I did a lot of searches online. There seems to be some sort of glitch, but this is what I mean by the software experience on the Legion Go is extremely hit or miss. With every game I faced some strange issue that I've tried on it, and yeah, let me show you that right here in a moment. So as you can see, the game menu is very stretched and it looks very odd. And many times when you hit that Legion option on the top right, it just ignores you, it does nothing. The software is really buggy on this console. I have to really point that out. It feels like a prototype, to be honest. But anyways, launching that benchmark and running it through, these are the results that I got on the Lenovo Legion. Oddly enough, they were worse than what I got on the Steam Deck at 15 watts. So performance wise, maybe that's why it's lasting a lot at 15 watts. Maybe it's actually not running exactly at 15 watts compared to the Steam Deck. And that would be my guess. I feel like it's throttling the performance so it can outperform the other consoles at the 15 watt rating, which is kind of the sweet spot. So the average FPS was 44 here, which honestly was not that great. So moving on here, I ran the Solar Bay benchmark on the Lenovo Legion Go at 15 watts first to see what it gets, and it has hit a score of 6077. There is 3 gigabytes of VRAM by default, and you can change that on the Legion Go, except it's not in the main settings here. You actually have to restart the console and go to the BIOS where you can modify that. And here's a very brief clip of what that looks like. When you go to the performance tab on the Legion Go, you do not see anywhere here where you can modify the GPU settings. You have to hold the volume up button and press the power button to go into this BIOS mode, and then from there you can jump into the BIOS setup, and then you would go to more options on the bottom right. So it's quite a few steps to do this really. And then all the way down you need to go to configuration, scroll down, and there you can expand your vGPU to 8 gigs. So this isn't as intuitive as the ROG Ally. To contrast this, on the ROG Ally you just go to operating mode, GPU settings, and you select what VRAM you want, and then you just hit restart, and once it's back in, it selects the correct amount that you picked in the previous menu. Now, the Steam Deck has a similar option, but you also need to jump into the BIOS. It's actually quite similar. You hold the volume up button and you boot into the BIOS there, and then down there is a more settings port which you go to, again very similar to what I just showed on the Lenovo Legion Go. And then you need to really go to those advanced options, and within the advanced options you could do that. So as you can see here, when I scroll up, I'll go to that advanced options menu, and then all the way down you can edit that UMA frame buffer size over there. So I wish that more consoles do it as intuitively as what's on the ROG Ally, where it's just very easy to change and then just restart the console. Now moving back to the benchmarks here again. So over here I'm running the benchmark on the Lenovo Legion Go, and this is in its highest performance mode. So we can see that the results will improve significantly here compared to the 15 watt mode. And here they are. The results are 9,537. So that's quite a bit of improvement in that 30 watt mode compared to the 15 watt mode. Now I'll run this benchmark on the ASUS ROG Ally. And here's the benchmark running on the ASUS ROG Ally in the 15 watt mode. And to my surprise, it hits a very outstanding score that is actually close to what the Lenovo Legion is getting on the 30 watt mode, which really makes me wonder if the watts that are being displayed by the Lenovo Legion Go are accurate at all. So in the 15 watt mode, the ROG Ally is hitting a score of 9,322, which is quite impressive. So I pushed it up to the turbo mode, which is 25 watts, and reran this benchmark to see how much better it would improve. And here are those 25 watt benchmark results on the ASUS ROG Ally. I really think the results are very impressive. It seems to be outperforming the Lenovo Legion in the 25 watt mode, even though the Legion claims to be running in 30 watts. So I don't know if the Legion is running in some underclocked mode. They should both have the Z1 Extreme chips, so the ROG Ally is vastly outperforming the Lenovo Legion Go here. Next, let's consider the fan noise while gaming on each one of these for a while. So here are the results for the ROG Ally. Next up here is the fan noise from the Steam Deck, which is very quiet. And finally the Lenovo Legion Go, which seems to be the loudest one out of the three. So next here I wanted to compare which one of these consoles works with an external display just out of the box, just by connecting a USB-C cable. So first off, in the Lenovo Legion Go here, once I connect that USB-C cable to external display, it seems to display on that external display with no issues, and it seems quite responsive. So no issues there, and that seemed to have worked really well actually. So I do like that this works out of the box with no issues. Moving on to the Steam Deck, when I hook that USB-C cable up, without dropping the console hopefully, when I plug that in and it's all the way seated, it actually turns the screen off of the main console, which I really like, and it switches that game out to that external display. I really like the implementation on the Steam Deck here because it's saving the battery on the main display as you're gaming on that external display to power it, and that's very smart, and it's a great implementation of this feature. So good job, Valve. Finally, the ASUS ROG Ally was the last one for me to test. Unfortunately, I could not actually get this one to work. When I plug it in, it attempts to display on the external display, but then it gives me a no signal, and it glitches out. The entire console freezes. I've tried several things and restarting to get this to work, and it just doesn't work. I've searched online through forums, and there seems to be a glitch with one of their latest updates causing this problem. I really haven't had many issues with this console or bugs, so I was quite surprised to see this. The fix is out there. I haven't attempted it yet, but it seems to be due to something trying to access a thread in memory that it does not have access to. I included a little short video here to what that looks like, and this internal system error occurs every time I try to connect an external display to the ROG Ally. Next up, I want to compare the speakers between all three consoles. So I will be playing a short snippet of music from all three and what it sounds like being picked up from my camera microphone, which was about 6 feet away from each console. So here we go. The ROG Ally with its forward-firing speakers and Dolby Atmos leaps ahead in terms of sound quality. The Steam Deck has forward-firing speakers, so I would put it at a close second. The Lenovo Legion Go has the speakers on top of the console, so the sound kind of shoots away from the user and it doesn't sound as good. In conclusion, I really cannot recommend the Lenovo Legion Go. Ergonomics wise, it's not very comfortable to use. It has some cool features, but due to the glitchy software and really the bad button placement and control placement, I just cannot recommend it at this stage. Instead, I'd be choosing between the Valve Steam Deck, especially if you're retro gaming and you want to pull the TDP down really low. It lasts a very long time, and it can still play some demanding titles. But the ROG Ally is better when it comes to that performance boost, and it also charges faster. So it's the most balanced out of the three consoles in my opinion, and it definitely, that fast charging is very useful. So in the future I might be uploading a video on the Steam Deck OLED. Please like the video, subscribe, stay tuned, and thanks for watching.